bottom up. So that's the idea behind the stream. If you have any questions or anything that you need some clarification on, feel free to pop a message in the chat and I'll get back to you. Let's see here. What is the project going to be? So what I'm going to build, and this is going to take quite a few videos. So this is going to be a multi-part series. Is a site aimed at social media managers so that they can promote their services to small businesses, startups, people like that, companies like that, or maybe like a personal trainer, yoga studio, that kind of thing. A lot of small businesses now, they need someone to manage their social media marketing services, and this is because this is obviously a very highly growing industry, and it will be good for social media managers to have a quick, simple way to promote their services and consolidate all of their accounts into one, so that they can show their skills in building a community and maintaining a steady flow of content and really engaging their users and their followers on things like Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, stuff like that, Facebook, obviously. So that's the idea behind the site, is for social media managers to very quickly be able to spin up a site and then plug in their accounts and promote their services to small businesses in the local vicinity. So this will probably be aimed at college age students and maybe a little bit older than that. So first few years out of college. One of the reasons I decided to build this project is because this is the sort of thing I've needed myself for quite a while. I'm often looking for people to help me out with my social media campaigns, email marketing, the usual, Facebook, Reddit, stuff like that. And it's hard finding good resources for just finding people and finding good ways to central ways to find people who can do that sort of thing. So I decided that this could be pretty useful for small businesses like myself to find people who offer this service. So that's the idea behind it. We are going to build it in React, Redux, Node, Express, the usual stack. Obviously going to deploy on Turbo. It's going to be only a one-page thing, though. It's not going to be a multi-page application, at least not yet. And the main UI will basically consolidate the social media platforms of the person who runs the site, and thereby being able to quickly promote their services. So that's it. Couple tools we're going to use to get started. So first things first, this is the theme I'm going to use right here. So go ahead and take a look at this link right here, and scroll down to the bottom, and you will see the source code right here. It's actually a GitHub repo, so it's pretty easy just to clone into it and grab the theme that way. So that's nice. It's a free theme. It's one of the main reasons I picked it, in addition to the nice UI. And in this case today, we're going to use the documentation page as well as the profile page. We're going to grab this profile panel. This is going to be a series, anonymous user. I can't do 5 hours at a time. I'm probably going to do about an hour and a half today. And I'll probably need about 5 sessions for this to complete. So give or take. So we'll see how that goes. But no, I'm not going to do a marathon 5-hour coding session. I don't have I just finished a work day. So, I do this after work. So hopefully that answers that. So I'm going to use this profile card right here. In addition to this documentation panel, I'm going to put the profile card over here on the right side, and this will be reserved for like the introduction, the profile introduction. So hello, my name is so-and-so. I can manage your Facebook, your Instagram, your Reddit, etc. And then these will stay here, and each one of these will be reserved for a different social profile network. So Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Instagram, whatever. And when you click on these, it will render the feed from that respective social network on here, and that will be where the React Redux does its thing. So this will be good to learn for React Redux as well. And then when you scroll towards the bottom, there will be a pretty prominent CTA. I will use the pricing cards for that, which I think they have pricing card. Yeah, here we go, pricing cards, where the viewer, the visitor of the site, can choose a package, like a monthly package, an hourly package, whatever. and that's it. And then sign up for this person's services. So that's the idea behind that. If you are completely new to this, make sure you have Node.js installed. Head over to nodejs.org and download and install the LTS. I am currently running 8.1, 8.11, 8.11, excuse me. So make sure you have at least that version or higher, and make sure you have npm as well. 5.6. Let's see, what else are we going to need? You're going to need gulp. So make sure you install gulp globally like this. Sudo npm I, or you can do install if you want, -g gulp. The -g is global. We're going to use gulp and webpack. So then after you do that, make sure you have webpack installed as well. So make sure you have that ready to go. And let's see what else. Oh, make sure obviously you have the turbo CLI. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to do this right now because I made some updates recently. So no matter what, you should do this because you may or may not have the most recent version. Check the turbo version and make sure you have this one or higher. So depending on when you watch this video. And let's see what else. Obviously, you're going to need the turbo account here so that we can deploy our application. So make sure you sign up for an account here. This is free, so you don't have to worry about that. And let's see what else. And I think for now that should cover it, so we're good to go. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to CD over into my desktop. And oh, by the way, also just to make sure everyone's clear, this is not a complete beginner tutorial. This isn't really even a tutorial. This is more just a live coding session where I just explain my thought process. So I'm going to presume a fair amount of knowledge. I'm going to presume you already know how to do a Node Express application. You know what a REST API is. You've worked with MongoDB. All these things I'm going to just sort of go through. I'm not going to explain from the bottom up. Otherwise, this will take a month. So I'm just going to assume that you have some basic knowledge in place already. We have a couple beginner tutorials here, like the REST API one and the MongoDB one, as well as a couple sample projects here that can help you get started. So I'm going to assume you have some basic knowledge there. So, okay, so I'm on my desktop right now. So I'm going to create a new Turbo project, social media profile, we'll call it. And let's see, I'm not going to include the React flag. Actually, no, I will. I'll make it a React project right off the bat. And if you've done a lot of work with Turbo already, you know that the next step is you need to cd into the project directory and run the npm install. This is a Node Express project, so we're basically treating it as such. Let me just get this out of the way. And here is the directory, the root directory of the project. So that's where we're starting off. Now, while that's running, I am going to open the source code in Sublime. Here we go. So here is the project scaffold. Here is the app.js, which is the sort of the entry point of the Express application. We have our views directory for our templates. We have our src for the React root directory. We have our routes, or just our request routes, public for static assets. We get an env file right off the bat for environment variables. A couple things get ignored already. Documentation, just a quick cheat sheet. We have the gulp file already configured for this project scaffold, as well as the webpack. So when the npm install is done, the next thing it's going to do is run the build, which it's doing right now, and then it'll run webpack as well as gulp, which is all happening right now. Right here, you can see that. And then we can confirm that the build is successful by running the dev server once this is done, which usually takes about a minute. There's the Webpack confirmation. Okay, great. So it's done. So the build is complete, the installs are complete, and we can run the Turbo Dev server just to make sure everything works. And then head over to localhost 3000. And here we go. So here is the scaffold. You can see it's a React project by my Chrome React plugin right here. It's running the production build. And so everything worked right out of the box. We do Control-C to turn off the server. And let's see here. So you know how it's structured. We have the index mustaches, which is the template that's rendering the code, the home page. So this is the React root and the basic imports that come out of the box. When the project is built, when we run the build script, the bundle spits out the app.js as well as the commons.js, which is specified in the Webpack. So if we open up Webpack, you'll see that we have our entry point, which is specified as the app.js, which references the src/index.js. That's over here, src index.js, and this is where the React code begins. And in particular, we're running the intro component. Here's just some intro text. We can just get rid of that. The provider, if you're familiar with Redux, is the React Redux provider, which basically glues our React code to the Redux environment. And inside the SRC, we have a very basic Redux skeleton set up for us. So we have our actions, constants, reducers, stores, etc. Most of this is just basically empty, like defaults. So there isn't much here other than just some sample stuff. So most of this we'll just end up removing and using our own stuff. And so this is a Redux scaffold all set to go. And so we're not just running a React project, we're running a React Redux project. So that's all set to go. So build, Joe, let me explain real quick what do I mean by build. Let's see here. So what I mean by that is here is the entry point of the React code, and inside the views index.mustache file is where the actual code is rendered. This is the home page, quote unquote. So the home page runs this and this. These two JavaScript bundles is what they're typically called. And what that means is that it doesn't run the source code as we write it. It doesn't run the source code that we write, because the source code that we write consists of what's called JSX code, and most browsers, or at least older browsers, cannot run JSX. So what has to happen is that this code has to be compiled into what's called ES5 code, and that's done through what's called a build process. And that's typically we call that building or compiling. So those two words can be used interchangeably, basically. And so the build script is defined right here, and this will actually take our React source code or our JSX code and compile it or build it, as whichever term you prefer, into the executable code, which ends up over here in this dist directory. And typically it's inside of a bundle directory. This is usually where the code is inserted in a production environment. So that's what I mean by build. So the build is automatically done on when you run the npm install, and then that way the whole project is ready to go right out of the box. That's the idea behind that. So we have already confirmed that. So basically we just scaffolded the project and built it, made sure everything ran, and we're good to go. So the next thing we want to do is grab this template so that we have access to it, and then we can implement this template. So this is, head over to this URL right here. I'll put it in the chat. I think that's how you do it, or I can do it inside the other chat window. There we go. And then, scroll down to the bottom of that page and then click on source code, and this will give you a this will direct you to a GitHub repo where the theme is hosted, and it's a free theme, so we can use it. It's also it's under the MIT license, which means you can just do whatever you want with it. So let's clone into this guy. So click on this and click the clone, and then head over to your terminal. I'm going to open a new tab, CD to my desktop, and then I'm going to just clone into this guy. All right, so we're good on that, and then we now have the theme on our desktop. Thanks, Adam. So here it is right here. If you open that up, you'll see that this is a project that also has like, you know, a gulp file, package.json, it's a node project. It probably has a build script as well. This is probably something that has to be built as well. So gulp build. But we don't want to go through all that, right? We just want to get the actual source code. So typically it's in a dist directory. So here it is right here. So if you open up the dist directory right here, you'll see the compiled results. So if you open up the index.html, now we see this theme from our own local source directories. So we basically successfully downloaded the theme. So for all intents and purposes, this dist directory right here is the theme. So I'm just going to pull that out. I'm not going to worry about all this other stuff because I don't want to do too much customization to this. That's just beyond sort of the scope of what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then we're going to call this tabler, and then I'm going to open this up, and then the pages we looked at earlier. So let's see, where are they? So we have pricing and documentation and profile. So let's go with the docs first. So tabler docs index. So let's find that guy. So docs right here, and then index. So here is the documentation index page reference from the local files. So we want to start with that. We want to get that code, these contents into our project. So I'm going to head over to my project here. Now remember, the templates are stored in the views directory. So right now, to make sure you understand what we're doing right now, the objective is the following. We're taking the docs page right here, we're importing all the necessary HTML, CSS, and JavaScript so that this renders properly, just as is, right? We don't want to worry about React or any of that stuff right now. And then once we've confirmed that, once we have all the assets properly imported and whatnot, we can then start converting all of this over into React components. So once we make the proper transfer of files and HTML files over and everything is rendering properly, we can then make sure that we can then start carving it up into React components. And that's typically how I do it. And that's it. So that's the idea. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So I'm going to cd into the views directory, and I'm going to create a docs mustache file. So keep in mind, by default, the projects give you a mustache templating engine. That's the default. So here, I'm just going to copy and paste the index into here. I'm going to remove this root, and I'm going to say docs page. Right, and I'm going to get rid of all these imports, and I'm just going to leave behind, you know, the head tag, and that's it. And then I am going to create a route that will be necessary to render this page. So the index.js route is the one that's the default route. So you want to open that up, and then we want to, let me just get rid of all this explanatory code. Let's create another router, get handler for the docs page. And all we need to do here is just render that template, and that's it. So it's not JSON, it's force of habit. We want to do docs, and then we don't need any data for here. And these down here are sample routes coming from the scaffold. We don't really need these. Let's get rid of those. And then let's see if the docs page even renders properly from here. So turbo dev server. I'm always confused by this UI. Where is it? Let's see. Okay, so localhost 3000, here's the home page, and then if we do /docs, now we have the docs template that we just set up. Great, so we're good to go on that. So let's now take this page, let's get rid of everything inside here, and let's replace it with the contents of the template itself. So here I'm opening up the tabler template itself, and then I'm going to cd into the docs directory and then grab the index. It's a lot. Well, it's only 316 lines. It's actually not that many. And then I just copied that, and then I'm going to go back to my project and then paste it in. Now, none of the imports are properly set up here, so this isn't gonna look right. But you can see where the imports are being referenced. We have right here, we have the require.min.js in the assets directory. Got the fave icon. It's just Bootstrap on its own, so that's good. The CSS is just plain old Bootstrap. That's nice. Actually, no, never mind. There's more stuff over here. So all this is referenced inside the assets directory. So if we head over to the browser and reload docs, you're going to just see a whole big mess of just nothing, right? That's because we didn't import the assets. So we open this up now. And you may remember all the assets were referenced inside the assets directory. So if you look at the actual code here, it's all referenced in the assets directory. So we need to grab that directory. Let me just get rid of this. We need to grab this directory. And I'm going to just dump it over here inside the public directory of our project, because remember, the public directory of our project is where all the static assets are maintained. So this is where you're going to have all your CSS, images, fonts. Really, it would be better if I just have all these just in the root level, which I'm going to probably do in a few minutes. But right now, the only objective is getting it just to show up. Now, keep in mind, these two dots shouldn't be there. All right, so what we're going to do is copy this like that, and just do a quick find and replace, and just get rid of these two dots like that. And that should take care of that discrepancy. Well, it looks like that covers it. So, all right, let's see how that looks. So, I have too many browsers open. There we go. All right. Okay, great. So now this is properly importing the necessary assets except the image right here. So let's copy the image address. See what happened. We have demo, brand, and then the SVG file. So there's also a demo directory, evidently, that we need to incorporate. So demo, right here, brand, and then SVG. So let's grab the demo. And dump that into our project in the appropriate location, which is public once again. So demo, and then just dump that into here. And let's see how that looks now. So when I reload, oh, too many browsers. When I reload, now we're in business. Now we have everything properly showing up. And there are no errors in the console, so there's no missing imports, no broken imports, nothing like that. I have too many browsers open. Let me just consolidate this a little bit. All right, so here is the page rendering from our own project now. So great, we have everything properly imported. Now I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup work, a little bit of housekeeping, I should say, because here you'll see that we have an assets directory that comes from the theme, which is basically the de facto public directory, right? So like we have CSS, fonts, images, etc. in here, and then we have CSS, images, and all that stuff over here. It seems to be redundant because it is redundant. So what we're going to do next is I'm gonna let's see here. I'm gonna get rid of these CSS, images, JS, all that's gonna go. And then I'm going to duplicate the assets directory. Okay, let's see. I'm going to move this guy over here onto my desktop. I'm going to grab all of these files and just dump these back into the root level of the project. Now, the idea here is to remove this assets directory entirely. Okay, so let's go ahead and start testing that out. So right now, if I reload the project in the browser, it should look the same because I didn't remove anything. Everywhere it says assets like this, right, we want to remove that and have it look like that. That's just better structure. So I'm going to do another find and replace and just replace all the asset references to just backslash like that. And try this again with nothing like that. And let's make sure I didn't mess anything up. So plugins, I don't remember seeing that. Nope, there it is. That's good. And then don't forget this demo instance right here. So the demo should also be at the root level, which it is. So we don't need these two dots. And I think that's the only spot where it shows up. So let's double check that. Right there, one more spot. So now this little C right here should be ampersand copy like that. That's better. All right, let's see how that looks. You don't have to, Adam. You don't have to duplicate the way I did. It was just a habit. It's not a big deal. All right, so I'm going to open the console and make sure that there are no broken links or anything like that. Great. So now the important thing to understand here is that this is now referencing the public directory directly. Now this favicon probably isn't working right, so yeah, it's probably the only thing I'm missing is the favicon. We can worry about that later. That's not a huge deal. All right, so what I'm going to do next is remove this assets directory entirely. That was the goal. And let's make sure that nothing else is being referenced from the assets directory. So if I open this up again, now we're missing a few things here, right? So if I do a quick empty cache and reload, so let's see here. jQuery. Okay, so the assets is where the jQuery is being stored. And let's think of a quick way we can take care of this. So let's see, jQuery. I have a feeling this is being referenced in one of the actual JavaScript files. So it's probably inside require.js, dashboard.js. So let's see here, public.js, dashboard.js. Yeah, let's see, do we want to really do this? This is the minified version, so assets. See it. All right, let's try that then. So inside here, the dashboard.js, how many times is it referenced? So that's it. All right, let's try that. So I'm going to get rid of these references to assets. And let's see if that takes care of those broken imports. All right, problem solved. So one thing I want to point out about this series right now is that I didn't really plan any of this out. I didn't like pre-spec the code or anything like that. I didn't like do all this beforehand. You're basically watching me code and just think out loud, essentially. So things are going to come up. There are going to be unexpected little circumstances like this that you just need to fix as you go. It may seem that, this may seem like I'm doing much ado about nothing here, but overall, I think this structure is more it's more comfortable because you're having too many subdirectories and whatnot for no good reason other than just because that's how the theme came. It's not really. It gets confusing. This keeps things on a more surface level, I guess. Easier to find stuff is the best way to put it. So it's also a good quick way just to sort of poke around the theme and see what pieces are and understand how everything connects and all that stuff. Um, so yeah, we got the theme properly integrated and rendering the docs page. So that's good. So in doing so, we also properly configured our asset our asset directories. So now what we can do is test it with the other pages. So I said we're also going to do a profile page. Let's go ahead and set up that template. I'm going to turn off the server and do a profile mustache page. And let's get that guy set up. So let's head over to our index.js, our main index routes file. And I'm going to create a profile route just to render the profile page. And then let's see here. I'm going to copy and paste the index into the profile page. And then I'm going to remove all this stuff and replace it with profile page. And let's test that route real quick. So turbo dev server. Here's the docs page, and here's the profile page. Looks good. So now let's start plugging in the template contents. So I'm going to now open the template tabler, find the profile page, copy and paste all that into our version, and quickly do the same thing. See, now we have single dot assets. We can just do a quick find and replace and just get rid of all those so that we're referencing our public directory. I mean, our assets directory is our public directory. We probably have a couple demo references right here, so just get rid of that. We don't want to get rid of the demo part. We just want to get rid of the period in front of it, so we'll just do /demo like that. Like so, and I'll do that demo. Right here, this is not going to work. Well, it probably will work, but I just want to be sure. I want to do a relative file path right here. So we want to put a slash in front of these, in front of this demo right here. So that'll give us a definite relative file path. There's a lot more stuff going on here. No, that should do it. Let's test it out. So let's see here. So I'm going to run the dev server. Profile page. There we go. And then check the console. We don't have any errors. We do have a warning, but it's fine for now. We'll probably end up getting rid of this anyway, so it's not a big deal. But so now we have our profile page successfully integrated, and we have our docs page so up and running. Looks pretty good. I believe we had one more page I was going to integrate. Let me just take a look real quick. I mean, we'll probably end up using a lot of this, but right off the bat, I want to use the documentation and the profile. Oh, pricing. Yeah, maybe I'll get that in right now too. So pricing. So let's see. We head over to the views directory, create a pricing page, mustache template. And inside the project itself, here we have our pricing template. I'm going to copy and paste the index, paste it in here, and do what we did last time. So we're going to do pricing template, and then create the route which will render that template. All right, let's test that out. Let's see here. So run the dev server. Oh, why do I always lose track of this? Where'd it go? So it's over here. All right. And then localhost 3000, and then we have docs, pricing. There we go, and then profile. Sweet. Okay, now let's get the actual pricing template in there. So here is the template source, and then we have pricing cards. So we just copy and paste that into the pricing template in here. So just get rid of all this, and then just paste it in, and just do what we did earlier. We just get rid of the references to assets. So we should get rid of all these, and then demo like that should be like that. And same thing, we have a couple more demo references right here. Again, I think these will work anyway, but I always want to go with the relative file path just to be 100% sure. So that should take care of that. Test it out. All right, so docs, profile, pricing. I'll spell it right this time, pricing. Okay, so we have the three templates that we know right off the bat that we're definitely going to use, successfully integrated with all the assets, properly rendering, no import errors, nothing like that. Everything was successfully taken from the template and integrated into our project, rendering from our roots properly without any import errors or anything of that sort. So it looks good. So now we're ready to go. So now let's see here. We have our dev server and we have the docs page as well as pricing and profile. This is kind of where I want to base off of for the entire project, right? So what we want to do is take all these contents and start carving it up into React components so that I can render from the React entry point. If we look at the actual index page, this is still the base template. It looks different now because we removed all the CSS and whatnot, but we want this now to render the docs page. So let's see here. Let's consider the best way to do this. So let's go through. I'm going to close the theme here. Okay, here is the docs page. Now there are certain parts of this that will not go into the React, the React source code, specifically the head tag, right? So this is going to be, I'm going to take these contents. So he's got the JavaScript files imported inside the head tag. Oh, interesting. He's got it over here. Right. So I'm gonna see if I can take these guys and move them to the bottom of the body tag, which is where they normally go, and keep the CSS stuff up here. This is more conventional architecture. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to break anything, so we're going to find out. So move it down here, and let's see if that messes anything up. Wow, it's always confusing me. All right, there we go. All right, looks good. I mean, nothing looks like it broke, and we're not getting any error messages in the console. So I think this is doable. I think this should be fine. So if you didn't catch what I did, initially the theme had the JavaScript imports at the bottom of the head tag, which normally I like to have them in the bottom of the body tag, like here. There's a more conventional structure anyway. This is more typical of what you'd find in a project. So I went ahead and created that split. I think I'm going to do the same with this as well. The required JS import. So I'm going to move that all the way down here. And let's see if this creates any discrepancy. So let's see here. All right, looks good. So we're doing a lot of prep work, right? We're doing a lot of prepping the theme for our project, and this is typical. This is just normally how it begins. So nothing unusual here. So all right, great. So now we have a little bit better structure. I'm going to take the internal contents of the head tag, and I'm going to cut that and open up the partials directory and replace what was there with the content of the head tag from the theme. So now we can just reuse that. So we have inside the docs, we can just do the partials for a head like that. Excuse me. And then let's make sure that that doesn't break anything. So we have that. And that looks good. So now let's see if this works across the other pages. So we have docs, pricing, and profiles. This one has an extra plugin. It looks like it has input mask plugin. And the base URL is a little bit different. So I want to make the base URL the same here. I'm going to go back to the docs mustache and make the base URL one dot like that. And then let's see here. Pricing has dashboard.js, C3, Google Maps, and then input mask plugin, which I don't think the other one had. Oh, no, it did. Okay, so it's identical. So we're good here. So let's go ahead and just make the replacement straight up. And let's see if anything breaks on the pricing page. Looks good to me. All right, and then let's do the same thing with the profile page, which also looks identical. So looks like we're in business. So let's get rid of that. And then don't forget, if you recall, we moved these JS imports down to the bottom of each respective page. So we got to do the same thing in profile as well as pricing. I forgot that. So right above the end of the body tag, we want to do that. Same thing in pricing. And let's see if that causes any breakages. So I want to test pricing. Now it has the proper JavaScript imports. It does. And then let's test profile. Spell it right. Looks good. Now let's create another partial for these imports because they're the same across the board, right? So let's create another partial for the imports. So views, cd partials, and then we want to call them imports. And these will just be copying and pasting those 4 imports. And then now we can use the partials instead. So that's pricing. Oh, I forgot the actual required JS, so that's important too. Just grab that and throw that inside the imports partials as well. And then we have pricing, profile, and docs. And let's test all three. Profile, pricing, and docs. Good. All right, everything still works. So we're carving up our code into more modular sections. Now, if this was not a React project, what I would normally do is keep on moving with the partials and creating a separate partial for the header, you know, these profile icons over here, the footer, etc. But since we're using React, those should actually be React components. So what we want to do now is take the docs.mustache. Let's see here. And let's see. So just taking a quick look through the code to see any potential problem points for when we do our React conversion. So what I'm looking for are things like style attributes, unclosed tags, and any kind of comments. So like for example, these are going to break the build. So we want to prevent that. Any kind of unclosed tags will also break the build, and any inline style attributes will break the build. So let's do a quick search for style. We have a couple here, so let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4, not bad, I can work with that. And then typically the image tags are unclosed. So line 14 right here, you'll see that the image tag is unclosed. So I found that and I closed it. So I just took a preemptive approach there. And also typically input tags are unclosed. So I found one right here on line 94. So let's close that guy. See if there's any other. Nope, that was it. Also typically BR tags remain unclosed. Don't see any, as well as HR tags. Cool, okay. So we closed any unclosed tags that at least I found. There's probably a couple more that I just didn't find, but they're closed. So so now what I'm going to try next is taking the entire div here, starting at right above the body tag, the end of the body tag. Right, and so this div right here that has the page class is like an enclosing div. It covers the entire thing, right? So if I do this, you'll see that they match up, right? So what we want to do is this entire div is effectively one very large component. So what we want to do is take that, copy that, and then open up our src index. And instead of this intro, get rid of the intro because we don't need that anymore. We're just going to paste in the entire thing. Now this is going to break, so we need to remember that there are a couple of style attributes that need to be addressed. So we find those, and this is not going to work in a JSX context. So we need to take that, and we need to convert it into an object, like so. We need to camel case the attribute, and put the value itself inside of a string. Now this is properly formatted for a React, or more accurately, a JSX style attribute. So we do the same thing here. And then here, yeah, thanks, Silverblade. I'm glad you find it interesting. Not that many people find this stuff interesting. Unfortunately, my friends don't find this very fascinating, so certainly not my girlfriend, I'll tell you that much. So glad someone enjoys this. Okay, so I preemptively addressed whatever I could. There's a very good chance I missed one or two things here and there. That usually happens, but what you want to do is you want to find whatever you can beforehand and preemptively address it so that the build doesn't break all sorts of places. But that being said, I probably missed a few spots. So let's go ahead and test it out. So now we do npm run build, and usually what happens is you see a bunch of error messages. Clean build right off the bat. I promise I didn't do this beforehand. It's just some days I just get lucky. All right, so let's see, where were we? So now we have our React entry point basically just rendering the same HTML, right? So, but that is now inside the build, the distribution of the code, the compile code. So if we go back to our index mustache, this should now be rendering that code. And look at that. That was an unusually smooth process, so don't think it always goes that way. It doesn't. And the vendor.min we're missing. We'll take care of that later. And that's it. So what I'm going to do here, so it's complaining about this guy right here, right? We're going to take care of that later, but what we're going to do for now, and what we're going to do for now is use the imports from the partials. And notice, by the way, how the head tag is already properly injected. It's a little bit different because it's not inside the actual head tag itself. So I'm going to make a slight adjustment like that. But otherwise, it's the same. So let's try it again. Now we should have no warnings or errors. Very nice. And then if we actually look at the source code, you'll see it is the React entry point. You see how there's like no HTML, right? That's because we're using the React entry point rather than the actual HTML. I'm going to make a few slight adjustments here just for posterity's sake. I'm going to take the head tag partial, add an extra carriage return right there. La-di-da, la-di-da. All right, looks good. Looks good. All right. Yeah, like I said, that was like an unusually smooth process, so don't think it goes that way every time. It doesn't. Usually I'm chasing down all these unclosed tags and whatever. So, all right, let's do some more cleanup now. So we're still doing setup work here, right? We're still prepping the theme. And again, this is pretty typical, is I spend some time just prepping the theme. So if you look at the imports, you'll see that before what we had was the vendor.min.js, right? And really, we actually want that. That's how it should be. The vendor.min.js is just a minified version of all the vendor imports, the external imports that come with the theme. So if you look at the imports template, or partial, I should say, basically what that means is these four JS files should be concatenated and minified into a vendor.js. That's how it should be. I'm just debating how I want to do this. I'm going to leave this guy alone because it runs a script like this. Nah, it's really poor form though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a custom script. Let's see, public JS vendors dashboard, and then let's see, public JS. I'm cding into the JS directory, and I'm going to create a initialize.js right here, and this will simply do what this guy is doing right here. And let's see if we can just do it this way. So function, then where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Right here. Run that guy like that. The reason I'm doing this is because that way I can just add this to the build path, and it'll also add this to the vendor.js. It'll just automatically include that. So then what I can do here is, instead of adding that script, instead of running that script manually at the bottom of the page, I can just do initialize like that, and that should perform the same operation. So now I have a set of files that I can just concatenate all in one. Hopefully that'll work. Let's just double check it. All right, let's see here. Okay, I put the vendor back by mistake, so let's get rid of that. Index, index, index. All right, looks good. So I don't really think anything's going to break here. So, all right, now let's start cleaning this up. So what I was saying was that these imports should really just be concatenated into one vendor.js file. In other words, this is actually what we want, this vendor.min.js. However, it's not properly, right now, it's not properly showing, it's not properly rendering the code that we need. So this happens in our gulp file, our gulp build file. So inside here, if you look at the gulp file.js, you'll see that we have a handful of tasks. I think there's like 4 or 5. The JS one is the one that we care about. And basically what this guy should do is take the imports from here and just concatenate them into vendor.min.js. If you see that on line 53, right? So what we want to do is take the imports that we're using and replace these with ours. So we do require.min.js right here. Our own custom initialize file. This is precisely why we wrote it, so we can just add it to our build path right here. Dashboard.js, plugins, charts, whatever. So Google Map plugin, which I'll probably just end up removing altogether. I don't really see why I would use Google Maps on this. And then input mask plugin. I don't know what this does, so since I don't know what it does, I'm going to leave it there because it's probably doing something important. Let's get rid of all these guys. Okay, so now our JS task is properly manipulating the files that we need. Right, so what I'm going to do right now is run the entire build. So we're going to do npm run build and just rebuild the entire project. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, Kareem, you can do all this in Webpack. It's, whatever you guys prefer. It's okay. So the build was clean. So now we can take these imports and replace it with vendor.min.js, which effectively is the imports now. So let's try it again. Yeah, you might be right, Kareem. I mean, it's certainly possible. It's downright likely at this point that I forgot something, so. Initialize and then dashboard. So initialize, dashboard. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to run the build again because Kareem pointed out that I overlooked one of the imports. Just rebuild the project. Okay, and then run the dev server. Everything looks good. Now, if you look at the actual source code, you'll see I'm now running the vendor. So now we're back in business. So now I'm running the vendor.js. This is the Turbo SDK, which we may probably will not use actually. So we may as well get rid of that. And then this is our React code. Last thing I want to do is clean up the build for the CSS files. I don't know. Sometimes I see it left alone like this. Sometimes I see it minified and concatenated. I mean, at the very least, it should probably be minified, to be honest. And this is not minified. So as you can see right here, yeah, I don't know. It's worth doing just to show you, I guess. So it's just empty. I don't know. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, let's see. We're going to grab these three CSS files, and then we're going to add them to the build path for the gulp CSS task, which will do the same thing as the JS task, which is concatenate and minify those files. So if you look at the actual JS folder file, excuse me, right here that we just created, you'll see it's this huge mess of, well, it's not that big, but it's just a mess of JavaScript concatenated and minified. So we want to do the same thing with the CSS files to optimize our delivery. So we're going to do, let's see here. Now we go into the head tag of the partials, grab these three, open up the gulp file, and let's remove all this stuff. And then here we have dashboard CSS, and then two more. And this one was empty, but I'm going to just add it anyway because I'm just being paranoid about it. Okay, and then this should concatenate and minify the CSS files into style.min.css in the public dist CSS directory. So I'm going to run the build again, and let's confirm that this didn't break anything. Okay, so style is done running. Well, the whole thing ran, so it's all done. And then let's run the dev server. Go over to our head partial, and let's get rid of all of these. So the entire CSS has been removed, except for Bootstrap, or no, Font Awesome, and some fonts. So, all right. This should look pretty sloppy now. Let's see. Right, because we removed the CSS. Now what we want to do is replace it with our built CSS. That would be dist css style.min.css. So dist css style.min.css, which is the other, all three of the previous CSS files combined. So if I rerun this, here we go. And usually what happens is the fonts don't carry over. See how it's missing the fonts file? So we lost all of our fonts, but we retained the actual style, the actual integrity of the style. So now we have to move the fonts over. You see, if you see what it's looking for, it says dist fonts, and then I guess feather, web font, whatever. So we have to take care of that. So we have a copy fonts. That's why this copy fonts task is automatically built in, because it's such a common occurrence. This is a very common occurrence. So what we want to do is find the fonts directory right here. So public and then fonts, like that. And then copy those into public./dist/fonts. So like that. And then this should properly copy the fonts directory from the original theme over into the distribution directory, therefore resolving at least that fonts issue. I'm running the build right now. Hopefully that should fix this. We will find out in a few seconds. All right, let's test it out. I'm going to do a hard reload. Back in business. So now we have everything properly loading. But notice how all the assets are minified. You see there's only that one CSS import, at least from our project directory. The others are from the external. Normally what I would do for this font awesome stuff is I would just import that internally as well. Although the CDN is fine, it doesn't really matter. And then the Google fonts I leave alone. All this stuff is eventually going to go. This is the important thing right here. Line 22 is that we now minified our CSS into just one file that combines all the other files from before. Notice how it's minified as well and concatenated. So it's much more optimal in the delivery. And same thing over here with the vendor, and as well as our React code. So now we're really ready to go. Our theme has been essentially fully prepped and converted over into at least one big React entry point, which is right here. This is one huge component showing a bunch of just JSX. Pretty sloppy right now, so we're gonna take care of this next. I'm not gonna do it today because it's going kind of long now. So I'm gonna call it a wrap here, but our initial objective has been accomplished, which is integrating the theme, prepping the assets, setting up the build, the build tasks. Yeah, all of these are being used too, which is good. So we're not doing anything extraneous here, which is nice. So that's nice. It's pretty lean, which is good. So everything is ready to go now. So in the next video tomorrow, what I'm going to do, same time, roughly 7 p.m. I'm trying to do a live feed every night, 7 p.m. except Friday and Saturday because nobody's going to watch on those nights. But that does include Sunday. So Sunday through Thursday, I'm going to try and do a live feed every night just because people seem to like that. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to take all this and start carving it up into React components. If you want to try that on your own, probably a good idea. So yeah, give it a shot, and then we'll do it together tomorrow. So hopefully you got all the